One of the hardest things in the world is to introduce someone to the real world they've never seen, because they've never lived in it. They've lived in a fictional construct inside their own head. They've been swimming in fictional delusions and belief systems and cultural narratives that simply aren't true, and yet they think that's reality.
It's Cyber Monday, a day on the retail calendar that can be enjoyed from a desk or the couch.
Enjoyed from a desk or a couch.
Enjoyed from a desk or maybe the couch.
Enjoyed from a desk or the couch.
Enjoyed from a desk or the couch.
Enjoyed from the desk or even the couch.
Enjoyed from a desk or the couch.
From a desk or
Waking people up is my most important mission. And what that means is teaching people to think for themselves and to quite literally question everything that they are told, question every assumption, question every narrative, question every news report, question every statistic, every official government report, even question their own senses. What you believe is, in many cases, not your own. It wasn't derived from inside your own mind. We as human beings are hardwired to take shortcuts in our decision making, and those shortcuts include things like going with the crowd, following the herd. The social pressures that are brought to bear to manipulate your thinking and change your beliefs are so powerful that almost no one is immune to them. And what's especially fascinating about this is that even people who are with the herd think that they are not. So most people tell themselves that they are individual thinkers, that they have rational thought and good cognition, but in reality, they've taken a shortcut to make a decision that goes along with the herd, along with the crowd, and then they backward justify that decision by telling themselves that they arrived at that decision through conscious cognition and rational thought and good decision making, when they didn't. They just took a shortcut. So if you look at all of these popular issues of our time, such as politics, who you're voting for, or cultural issues like, let's say, gay marriage or transgenderism or Black Lives Matter, anything like that, you find that most people go along with these things solely because there is tremendous social pressure to do so. Climate change, for example, man-made climate change, global warming. Almost nobody who believes in global warming is a scientist, or certainly not a climatologist. They don't understand how to interpret data. They've never even seen any data. They've never seen raw satellite data feeds, as I have, and so they have no first-hand knowledge of how is the climate actually changing or going through cycles, or perhaps not changing in certain ways. So they have absolutely no knowledge of how to ascertain whether climate change is in fact influenced by the behavior of burning fossil fuels. And yet they believe these things are real. Why? It's because they have been manipulated and in fact cognitively impregnated, or brainwashed, you might say, by the social pressures of their peers. And these social pressures go along with very dedicated campaigns of shaming and vilifying and censoring those who do not conform to the obedient ideas of the current popular agenda. So on this issue of climate change, or you could say, Black Lives Matter, or you just pick your issue. It's all the same. If you don't go along with what is demanded, the narrative that is demanded of you, the socially approved narrative, then you are shamed, you are ridiculed, you're mocked. And this is actually one of the primary functions of the fake mainstream media today. The media is not in any way interested in reporting actual news. They have no interest in that. That doesn't pursue their agenda. It doesn't make them money. It doesn't get viewers to tune in. There's no interest in that. The real interest is in shaping the cultural narrative and reshaping the belief system of people. And one of the primary ways they do that is to mock those who do not go along with the current approved, demanded narratives of the politically correct elitists who are in fact writing the scripts for your brain. They're writing the narratives. They invent them. What's interesting is that globalists or the social engineers, you might say, can pick any issue and any side of any issue and make it seem real. For example, talk about, let's say, gun violence in America. A social engineer, let's say the Obama administration, working with CNN, can say, well, gun violence is worse and worse and worse, and there are hundreds of mass shootings every year in America, and they can hammer this issue, and they can push this issue, and they can make it seem like it is the absolute worst thing ever, like you're all going to be shot tomorrow if you don't immediately bow down and surrender to their demands for gun control. They can do that, and in some ways they have. But this exact same team, CNN and Obama or someone else, they could also choose the other side. And suppose they just passed some kind of enhanced background check, and now they want to take credit for that background check. They want to say that gun crime is down. Well, using the exact same statistics, they could then start pushing a narrative that says, well, gun crime is down and you're safer now because of this enhanced background check. Even if there's no statistical difference, they could then start running the news programs and have guests on and start pushing this angle. Everybody's safe now because of us. Gun violence isn't happening, and they could even challenge you. Look around when you drive down the street. No one's shooting at you. See, it's true. The evidence is right there. You see, they could cite that, and they could paint the exact opposite story of the story that they painted, 6 months earlier. You pick any issue, climate change. They could convince 99% of the people that climate change is going to destroy humanity, but they could also flip it around and convince 99% of the people that climate change is a complete hoax. And this is again because most people have no ability to think for themselves. In reality, their ideas and their beliefs have been injected into their heads by someone else, sometimes the news, sometimes an authority figure, sometimes the government, sometimes their peers, and then they then invoke an internal reverse justification to justify their decisions based on this false idea that they know what they're doing. If you have a room full of people, let's say you have 100 people in a room, if you ask individually each one of those people whether they think that their intelligence is above average for the room, something like 75% of the people will say they're above average. And yet we know that's really impossible. You can only have half the room that's average or above. The other half is obviously below average. But each individual would never realize that. And if you were to go around and ask people about their decision-making skills, most people vastly overestimate their ability to make good decisions. But this is an essential part of the wiring of human psychology. It is what allows people to go on through their lives making horrific decisions every day and yet maintaining a sense of optimism that is frankly quite irrational. Most people would not survive in the real world. They can only survive in artificial constructs, cities where your self-defense is delegated out to other men with guns, dial 911 and the cops show up. Or you've got modern emergency medicine that can save you from an industrial accident or something. We've got processed food, factory food farming that can give you empty calories without you knowing how to grow food. Without these conveniences, truly 90% of humans living today in first world nations would not survive 1 year. They are cognitively incapable of it. So you have this true delusional thinking. And this thinking hasn't really been challenged any time in recent history. When have we had any kind of a natural disaster that required survival skills, that required adaptation, that required building a shelter out in a forest somewhere, or foraging for your own food, or carrying out some really simple first aid medicine like putting a tourniquet on someone who's bleeding out, or even on yourself in order to save your own life from potential blood loss. These basic things, most people living in first world societies today would absolutely fail at all of these things. And you've got people that they don't even know how to change a tire on their car. And yet again, they think they're all geniuses, and they think they're qualified to vote. They think they're more qualified to vote than you. And so when you have a society that is large numbers of people who vastly overestimate their decision-making abilities, you end up with a society full of weakness and failure and corruption and complacency, because you don't really have any survivors anymore. You don't really have people who can make good decisions. You don't have adaptability, flexibility. You don't have the neuroplasticity of cognition that is necessary for really the evolution of human understanding and cultural wisdom. All of these things get lost rather quickly when you have a complacent, easy society, a convenient society. You end up, as Clint Eastwood said, with the pussy generation of people who really can't do anything. And by the way, it's from there, it's a very short step to the next stage of society, which is collapse. And then from collapse, you have extreme hardship. And from extreme hardship, you give rise to the next phase of that society, which is adaptation, determination, work ethic, survival, and all of these really positive skills that then create the next wave of abundance for the next couple of generations, until things get so good again that you have complacency again, which leads to another pussy generation of pathetic failures who end up dying out because they don't know any better. These are the cycles of civilization. And at one level, here we are in it. You and I, we're observers and participants in these cycles. And yet, if we can, in a sense, step back from it and watch it, it's quite comedic. It's the rise and fall of civilization in a predictable cycle. And watching history repeat itself over and over and over again while humans don't learn a damn thing from it is, it's simultaneously comedic and tragic. You might hope that sooner or later we would learn something and move forward, but history shows us that that's a rare thing. Very few people are able to keep in their minds the entire context of history, the lessons of history, and move forward with a real sense of humility, of honest self-assessment of your strengths and weaknesses and limitations, and fill in the gaps on your limitations and actually teach yourself or take on the tasks that you need to learn in order to be a part of the future of human civilization. It's a very rare individual who is willing to take those steps. And that's why we have revolutionaries throughout history, because every once in a while, certain individuals step forward who break the cycle of complacency and the cycle of self-destruction and the cycle of pathetic implosion, and help pull people out of that and move society forward in a positive, abundant, adaptable way. And that's what we should really hope to become, each and every one of us, is to contribute to helping human society avoid the mistakes that our ancestors made. Knowing that we don't have to repeat the mistakes of history that we've already made over and over again countless times. It is really breaking that cycle and, in effect, graduating human civilization to a state of global adulthood, where we are conscious adults, where we take responsibility for our actions and also take responsibility for the effects of all of our collective actions. And by the way, collectivism, as we understand it, is a horrible thing. But we must keep in mind the collective implications of our individual actions, so that we don't, for example, we don't steal from the group in order to just enrich ourselves at the expense of others. We must pursue innovation and abundance ourselves at the same time that we reach out and uplift others and teach them and share knowledge with them, so that they can also follow in those same footsteps of abundance and knowledge and wisdom for the future of humanity.
You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period.
When you really grasp this, you have a sense of overwhelming sadness for society, but also perhaps a gleaming little bit of hope that if you can wake up enough people and share the truth about all of this, all levels of the truth, all the way up to the top, that perhaps you can play some small role in helping humanity break these cycles and move forward in a true revolution for consciousness, wisdom, understanding, knowledge sharing, and breaking free from the enslavement and the bonds of bad government, criminal cartels, globalism, and all of these things that keep humanity down. We have a rare and limited opportunity to shape the future of our world in a way that supports human dignity, human rights, human liberties, and individual liberty. And if we miss out on this window, we will descend into a totalitarian globalist regime run by tyrants and despots and criminals and racketeers. And we are dangerously close to going over that cliff right now. That's why I'm willing to come out and say these things that need to be said. This is not economics 101. These are advanced concepts for advanced thinkers, people who are revolutionary thinkers, philosophers, historians, scientists, humanitarians, psychologists, people who understand human history and the potential for humanity's future, and who want to explore these ideas. That's who I'm trying to reach with these videos. And this is why I'm going to continue to share this information and discuss these topics. Regardless of my individual future, this conversation is crucial for all of us. If you'd like to help support this video and other videos like this, visit healthrangerstore.com, where everything we sell is laboratory tested for heavy metals and more. You'll find superfoods, storable survival foods, nutritional supplements, and a full line of synthetic chemical-free body soaps, shampoos, and oral care products. Everything we sell is non-GMO, and it's all completely free of chemical sweeteners, artificial colors, hydrogenated oils, and other toxic ingredients that you want to avoid. Find all this and much more at healthrangerstore.com.